would, give a huge, huge warm welcome to Jim Cecil. Jim. Safe trip.
It's Godfather. Godfather. Not grandfather. Mark Twain said it better than anybody, and he said it 100 years ago, and he was not talking about marketing. Listen to this, 11 words. He said, when you need a friend, it's too late to make one. Write that down. That's the truth. You just think about it. How many opportunities go away because somebody else has the friendship? It's going to sound like all my quotes are from 1800s, and I don't quite know why, other than they... I'll bet Vern can help us understand that one. Marshall Fields has to be acknowledged as one of the greats in marketing. If you consider a man who started a dry goods store on State Street in Chicago in 1871, and his name appeared on that building and hundreds of others all over the world in 3 separate centuries. Target just bought him out and took the name down. Can you imagine? One of the most trusted and revered brands in history, and they just simply said, we're Target, we're not Marshall Fields. But Fields was a visionary, a true pioneer of marketing, of real relationship marketing. They asked him, a reporter asked him after the fire in Chicago burned his store down, and he was telling this Tribune reporter, saying he was wandering through the town, the ruins, trying to find a story. And he saw this guy standing right in the middle of the ashes. And he said the most forlorn person he'd ever seen. He said he was just idly kicking the ashes with his foot. And the reporter realized it was Marshall Fields, and so he said he sort of sidled up quietly, and he said he got right face to face with him. And he says, so, Mr. Fields, are you going to abandon Chicago and move to the suburbs like Sears announced last night? And it said he like woke him out of a trance, and he jerked up and he said, you mean move? And the reporter said, yeah, move. And he said, no, I'm not going to move. And he said, you're just going to bag it? Had enough? And he said, you mean quit? And he's a very arrogant guy. He said, no, I ain't going to quit. And he said, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm going to build another store right here. He said, I'm going to build the finest department store that's ever been built in the world. Only he said, this time I'm going to build it out of granite. He said, they're not going to burn me out again. They can rob me maybe, but they can't burn me. And this reporter said, so why aren't you moving to the suburbs? They're saying that people are all moving to the suburbs and they're never coming back downtown. And Fields looked at me and said, not my customers. And this reporter's kind of arrogant, and he said, so what's so different about your customers? He said, nothing very much, other than they've got a lot more money than most. And he said, tell me who your customer is. And he said, I built this store, and we serve the affluent women of Chicago. And this reporter said, oh, you mean the rich ones? And Fields said, no, misdefinition. He said, rich is not affluent. He said, a lot of ways to get rich. You can steal it, inherit it, borrow it, make it, a lot of ways. But he said, there's only one way you can become affluent, and that's if you tell yourself you are in fact affluent. You're the only one that can make that judgment. And the reporter said, what do you mean? And he said, people that are strivers in life, he said, throughout histories of society, there have always been the struggling class, and there have always been the affluent. Every society that's ever had free enterprise has always developed an affluent clientele segment. And he said, but what defines the affluent? And he said, it's not rich, it is enough. For what enough? And he said, whatever. Money, time, idea, process, enough. So that you can see as far as the horizon, and all you see is blue skies and green lights. So he said, my clients are affluent women. Not rich necessarily, but he said affluent. That means, he said, the difference between the struggling society and the affluent society is that the struggling society has only one choice ever, lowest possible price. That's all they've got. That's where the generic brands came from, that concept. He said the affluent, on the other hand, have two choices. They can still buy the cheapest, or they can buy the most expensive if they want. He said, and life is about that. And if you have more than one choice, he said, if you only have one choice, you're a robot. But if you have two choices, you have options. And he said, when you have options, you have all kinds of opportunities. Feels. Think of that. 18, whenever the fire was, 81, I think. I'll give you another, and this is not quite 1800s, but anybody in here got enough gray hair to remember Mae West? Perhaps the greatest comedian in history. Big, flouncy, bustle, big hat, arrogant as devil alone. And one of the first silent movies that I ever had a chance to watch in my life was Mae West and W.C. Fields. And she was telling him that she wanted to advertise. And he said, you don't have to advertise. You're the only bar in town. Everybody knows you. And she said, well, what about the people that are coming to town? And she was determined she was going to advertise. And he said he thought it was stupid. And she looked him in the eye with a cold sneer, you know. And she said, listen, out of sight is out of mind, and out of mind is out of money, honey. I'll never forget her. Think how powerful those statements are. You know, when you need a friend, it's just too late. You know, and feels. You know, I serve very tight niche, very, very well. You know, and then Mae West sewed it all up. Out of sight is out of mind. People don't go away mad, they just go away. And they don't not call us because they don't like us. They just don't remember. Guess whose responsibility that is? Not theirs. Oh, we'd think it would be with the best opportunity they've ever had. But that isn't the way the mind works. It's all about contacts, isn't it? Isn't it all about relationships? Isn't it ultimately about relationships? Especially as you move up in the value of the proposition that you're making. So that's what nurture, people say, what do you mean by nurture? I said, well, it's sort of the opposite against aggression. You know, you can't say nurture in a hostile way. I'm going to nurture you. Sure. Pamper me a little. But that's what this world is. We are so, at this point in our lives, we have reason to be frightened because of the uncertainty of where we're going. And as Field said, when you need a friend, I remember when De Beers ran their first television commercial for diamonds in the United States. Remember, black screen, beautiful stone, and a warning in white trailing across, and it said, if you don't know diamonds, you better have a very good friend in the jewelry business. And I think that's where we're all going, in that place where we need a friend in the business, someone we can flat trust, depend on, you know, done deal. Isn't that the position we want to hold on people's minds? Okay, so I've given you my sermon. Now let's go play a little bit, if you will. Oh, beautiful books, by the way. One of them I'm going to give you free, and the others you're just going to go to the website and beg. So this one is called Nurturing Customer Relationships. I'm a farm boy from Kentucky. I wondered about my family. My dad and mom raised 10 kids right in the middle of the Depression, intentionally. I thought it was a Catholic thing, you know. Turned out just labor force. That was all it was. But my parents were the natural nurturers of the universe. They treated their children like royalty and their friends. My dad used to say, if you want to keep squirrels on your place, they used to call a farm a place. He said, you grow nut trees. He said, if you want hummingbirds on your place, you grow bellflowers. He said, if you want friends on the place, you learn to barbecue. You know? Deposit, deposit, deposit. I mean, it was just their nature. My dad, pragmatic as a heart attack, you know, he said, I'll never forget it. He said, when you're poor as we are, you got to nurture the dirt. Think of that. Environmentalist, pre-Second World War. And literally, what we didn't eat and the animals didn't eat was composted. We didn't call it that. The fertilizer. There was no fertilizer before the Second World War or after, until after. That's something. But nurture is a part of us. It is our nature to need that nourishment. We are born into nurturing and nurtured through most of our formative parts of our lives. And so I'm not trying. I saw a sign coming in Monday night. The traffic had stopped the cab, and I looked out the window, and there was a filling station. It had a big sign on a pole, and the sign said, "I don't want to change your life, I just want to change your oil." By getting down to the point. So I don't want to change your life. I'm not trying to tell you you ought to become a nurturer. I'm not going to tell you if you don't, bad things are going to happen to you. This is a huge, successful organization. You've made big investments in yourself and in your future. So you don't need somebody up there throwing scare at you. I'm not. I'm just saying, if you got the heart for it, this has proven itself so astoundingly. One of our big software company clients wanted to find out, how do you develop a channel? And more importantly, how do you have a channel that can sell, especially when they are primarily left-brain, analytical, non-expressive mutes, also called geeks, excuse me. The VP of marketing, the first day I met him, he said, "We're going to die with the smartest sales force and most trusted salespeople in history. We're going to starve to death." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because they're the last people on earth to ever walk up to a strange lady and ask for a date." He said, "Until we can," I said, "Unless what?" And he said, "Unless we can figure out how to get the market to come to them, because we are never going to change their personality. They are not going to like going out of their programming mode and go out into their schmoozing mode, and they won't do it." And that was where Nurture was born. They said, we have to find out, how do professional service providers gain access to and influence with the affluent? And in this case, the business-to-business market, small business. How do you gain access? And how do you gain influence? What does it take? I started a hobby retirement business 22 years ago, because I'd always wanted to do serious market research on entrepreneurial business success. In my whole life, I've been in corporate world practically, and I'd always been fascinated by the channel partners that I had under my command, because they worked all the time, and they were the happiest people I knew in all of business. They were doing their thing. One guy even sang me a song one time, and I said, "Why? You're working weekends every day, every night." He said, he sang it to me in Polynesian. He said, "If you ain't got a dream, how you gonna have a dream come true?" That's entrepreneurism. That's who you are. That's what brings you to New Orleans, to stay up all hours and work through this. So I'm basically here not to talk you into it. I'm basically here to share what we're learning, is that the heart is the foot in the land, especially in the land of business. We are so desperate for trust, so desperate for somebody that we can count on. But this whole concept then of having the best product, best price, best history, best credentials, ain't working. I want a friend in the business, like the diamond jeweler. It's dangerous out there. There are more charlatans, I believe, than there are venturists. So I want to tell you what my purpose is today in 50 minutes. I'm not here harvesting. I'm not looking to sell anything. I'm basically planting a seed in your mind. Maybe tonight, maybe 5 years from tonight, you go, "You know something? Our best customers are the people that I personally have cultivated a good relationship with. What if we could scale that? What if we could help every salesperson have a farm and have it done as an automated process?" So here's what we discovered in that research. It was over 2.5 million air miles on the study, 14 years, sponsored by 2 of the largest technology companies in the world, talking to groups just like this, smaller, usually 20 to 25 CEOs. And basically, I just asked them questions.